So welcome to stage 24, which just like the previous stage is the left rear suspension, and I've got all my parts out ready, and the screws I've popped into the little screw container, and there are three kind of screws: AM 1.7 by 3 mil, BMs which are 2 by 4 mil, and CP which are 1.7 by 4 mil. So I'll obviously get those out as I require them. So the first parts that we need are 24A, which is this piece, which is just called joint, and it looks like half a joint because this half is not there yet. And we'll also need 24A, which is the drive shaft, and it's just simply a rod of metal with a little hole in the end. And then all we need to do is place the joint place the drive shaft onto the joint like that, and you see there's a hole in there, and yep, you've guessed it, we are going to secure that with a CP screw. And I think this screwdriver, no, it's just the right size. I tend to find with most part works I'm using just two different screwdriver heads. Right, so I'm going to hold that in there, and I'm going to place my CP screw in there, and because it's going into plastic, I'm going to let it tell me when to stop, and that's perfect. That is perfect first time. So stage 2, we need to fix the joint and drive shaft to the left suspension, which we used in made in a previous issue. And let me have a look at the orientation. So we have the little lump there up, and we have this peg to the right, and we have this piece there, and therefore this will go on like that. So there is no other pegs anywhere else that we can put that. So that will go on to there, and then that will be secured with an AM screw, which is going to go into metal. But we do have to be aware that we are screwing in a plastic part into metal. So whereas we normally do our metal screws tight, we don't want to go over tight on this one because we might split the plastic part. And that has got a very, very tight thread, or it's not in properly. It's in properly, but it doesn't seem to want to stop screwing. So, there we go, found it. So that actually took quite a lot of screwing, but as you can see, it's in. There's no movement, and I'm rather happy with that. So the next step is step 3. Slide the rear shock body 24C, which is this piece here, into the hole in the rear suspension arm. So that's this hole there, and it's going fat side down. And let me have a look. It actually goes on the inside, my apologies. So you can see there's a hole, but it's got a flat side, and this actually has a peg with a flattened off edge, and that's going in like so, and over that goes the can only be fitted in one orientation. We also, it hasn't mentioned it on the instructions, but it's obvious anyway, 24D, which is this rear shock spring, and that's going over there, and it secures that with a BM screw. So I'll actually take the spring off because it's going to make it difficult to get at that part. So again, this is a metal screw, because this part is metal. So I need to hold that as securely as I can, because what's going to happen if that comes loose and then it rotates as we screw, it may not go in properly, and it is tricky to hold. So I wonder if we can, we just need to get the screw in. Once we get that screw in, it'll hold. You see, I've got it in loose, and then I can just I can let go of it then. But I do need to just be aware that this hasn't popped out, and that is a beautiful fit. That's really, really nice. So we'll just double check. There we go, that's as tight as it will go. So again, as I said, we will just finish that off with the spring like that, and that's not a really, really over tight spring. I think that's just right for the job. So step 4, we need to bring in the chassis. So let's find the orientation, and we know we're going left rear, so we know we're round about here somewhere, because we know it's a rear engine vehicle and we know it's the rear left shock. So it looks like it's actually going on the bottom, which makes an awful lot of sense. So this is where it becomes awkward, because obviously we're working with this fragile engine. This isn't so bad. Now I did have a recommendation to put a towel down, which I don't actually. Right, so I will just disappear for a moment and I will just go and get myself a towel. Okay, so this part is a little bit complicated to explain. What's going to happen is that spring's going in there, and this is going to go through the spring. It will be secured on the other side by a washer and a BM screw, and then the following stage, these two parts here need to go into there and there. Now this part needs to go down and this part needs to come up, so you need to kind of synchronize all of them together. Now I will confess, I did a take and I screwed this part on before looking super closely at this stage, and I saw that I made a mistake and I wasn't able to move it around. So place the spring in, place that peg into the spring, move this section down into the hole, and then place this part over the hole. Then you need to turn it over, and keeping these parts in, and they want to jump out, they really do. We then need to push this through that hole there. Can you see it poking out now? And then with your screwdriver and your screw and your washer on there, you screw that in, but making sure that you keep pushing this suspension down. You want that peg to come lower than the chassis, and once that's screwed in, probably about 3/4 of the job is done. So that's in as tight as you can. So then we'll move on to step 5, and what we need to do, see these have moved, so we just need to manipulate them a little bit. So that's in place, and this one's actually stayed in place. So step 5 is to secure this one with a BM screw, and I thought I'd lost my screwdriver then. I don't think this is difficult, it's just complicated once you figure out the parts. So I'm just going to move it on its side just so that I can finish that screw off. Lovely, that's in place. And then finally we have another BM screw which is going into, this one actually comes in from the bottom, so it goes in there, and that will secure this from underneath. And there we go, that's in place. So let's have a look at what we've got. So we have a little bit of front suspension there, left rear suspension, I keep getting it wrong. So just a little bit there, and I love this because it's so basic but effective. So we've got 2 pivot points there and a spring, and of course we've got the leaf spring there. What could be more perfect? That's really stiff, really stiff, really stiff. So, but yeah, no, I'm really happy with how this is coming along. So yeah, I mean, if this is how good it's going to be on the little workings, what's it going to be like when we do the interior? So guys, so this is really progressing. That's stage 24 complete, and I hope to catch you in the next stage, which surprise surprise is not the suspension on the other side.